Hey guys, this is Colin from Blackjack Apprenticeship, and we are doing a podcast. We have with us a guest. He is actually the winningest blackjack player that we've ever played with. He has been a professional card counter for how many years now?
6.
For 6 years, and he writes on Blackjack Apprenticeship under the name Loudon Ofton. That's not a...
The crowd goes wild.
That's not his real name, but he wants to keep a little bit of mystery and separation between his casino personality and his Blackjack Apprenticeship personality. But without any more introduction, this is our interview with Mr. Loudon Ofton.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So to back up a bit to 7 years ago, how'd you get into card counting?
Well, the first thing that happened was I came across it on my own. I'd played blackjack before, sort of employed some of the more superstitious elements of, how to win at blackjack, double your bet 3 times and then go back to your original bet or whatever it was. I just thought it was an interesting game. But then I read somewhere that it was beatable. So I looked up a little bit more. It was really hard to find information online that had any sort of decent... I don't know. It wasn't easy to find good information. So I found the basics, and I went and tried to do it on my own in the casino with like $20 in my pocket.
Yeah. So you're saying when you were searching on AOL 10 years ago, 15 years ago, had a little trouble.
Yeah, it might have been right around Google, or pre-Google search engine.
So you thought you'd do it on your own, and how'd it go?
I was wildly successful. I think I won all of my first 19 sessions, and I guarantee you I was not counting very well. I was not employing very good basic strategy or deviations. I had, some good ones memorized, but I wasn't doing them regularly. And my betting strategy was never what I thought it was going to be going in. I was always scared to do a big bet, even though my big bet was like $10 or $15.
So you were under betting, but just couldn't lose. Oh,
totally under betting, and totally variance was on my side.
That's hilarious.
So I thought I was doing everything right, and I was off to the races.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. So winning 19 sessions in a row, why didn't you just keep going and parlay it into 100 straight wins?
Well, the next step was I ran into an actual card counter who was doing it for a living and was buying a house. And so to me, that represented the next level. So if I was going in with $20 and winning, it's like, well, what am I doing wrong that I could be, buying myself a house or whatever? Yeah. So I was like, I got to meet this guy. I got to, cull his brain and find out what the next level is for me.
You got to put those big bets out.
Right. So that was Ben, and met him through a church connection. And so I met up with him at a dingy little mini casino on Aurora in Seattle, and this was late at night, and watched him throw out black chips, and do his game it was like a double deck game they had there. And then he got some, crazy comp. So we went to the restaurant and ordered omelets with like everything in it, or, pizzas with everything on it, or whatever it was. And I felt like, this is awesome. I got to find out exactly what he's doing, and, I got to become part of this. So how did that affect your own play? Did it deter you, or did it excite you? Did you just start betting more, or what happened? Well, I wasn't, playing for me was still hobby arena. So when I had a couple $100 extra, I would go down and try it out. But that night when I met with Ben was a key turning point in my blackjack career, because he gave me a book by Stanford Wong, and it had all of the numbers and everything in it. And I basically ran my odds through that material to find out, based on how I was playing the game, what I could expect if I was playing perfectly. And what I discovered was that if I was playing perfectly, which I wasn't, I guarantee it, but if I was playing perfectly, I could make like 5 cents an hour.
Oh, there you go.
So on paper, there was no future for me. And sure enough, I started going to the casino, and those first 19 sessions were a total mirage.
Yeah.
And I started losing like crazy, even though I was, playing the same way I had been.
Yeah, that's funny. The same thing happened to me when I started. I went to casinos. I was just practicing. I think I was adding $1 per true count. So there wasn't even maybe a $5 minimum bet. There's no way I even had a positive EV game. But of course, within the first 2 nights of practicing, and I was probably off on the count, making basic strategy mistakes, but I'm up, $200, $300, $400, $500, and I'm thinking this is easy money. And I start bragging to my friends about it, and then, of course, over the next couple sessions, I lose it all, and I'm back to zero. And that's when I was like, I don't know if this really works. And I put it on the shelf for a while until Ben and I decided to take it seriously.
Yeah. Now, I have a question. When you would have those little wins, were you able to say that's I'm building my pool? Because I would always, if I won $300, I would live like a king, and the next time I came, I'd have the $40 over again. I wasn't sort of building anything, which was a clue that I shouldn't have been messing with, because I wasn't growing my enterprise.
No, I've never been much of a spender, so I was just thinking, I'm not going to touch it, but I'm going to win thousands, and then I'll be able to prove to people and say, look at what I've won, but instead, of course, I'm back to square one, back to zero after the first couple weeks of it. So then I was afraid of actually losing the money. It was one thing when I was playing with the house's money. When I was back to zero, I started to get cold feet, and until I built up the had a couple grand to put into it, had the confidence to try it. And I remember when so this is when Ben and I were first playing. This must have been when you met him at a casino, and you were talking about was it professional blackjack? Is that what Ben gave you?
Yes.
So do you remember it had like benchmark rates?
I don't remember all the terms.
Yeah, so it would say, well, if you're playing with these rules and you use this bet spread.
Yeah, no, that's familiar now.
So you're probably using that and then calculate, okay, I've got about a 5 cent an hour, 5 cent an hour win rate. I remember reading that thing and it would say $20 an hour, and I was it blew my mind that if I could find these rules.
In a good way, right? You're saying
yeah.
It's like the easiest $20 an hour you've ever made.
Yeah. It was eye-opening to me that I could make $20 an hour. Of course, I didn't have the bankroll to bet the way he was saying.
Well, you were flipping burgers on your feet all day, right, at that time. So that sounded pretty good to sit down in a casino and make $20 an hour. Yeah, but you had the opposite effect. You looked at it and said, okay, well, with what I've got, it's a fraction of that, not really worth the time. Right. And I knew that I couldn't keep up if I wasn't building some sort of bankroll. And part of that was I knew that the way Ben was operating was stick to the system, grow the pool, or find people to bank you or back you. Because at that point he was getting involved in team play too, and I'd read about the MIT team, and so I realized that was probably where it was at if I was ever to do it, which is play with someone else's money and just be a soldier.
So that must have been about the time that we were really growing things on our own. So you put it on the shelf for a while, and then what changed for you?
Well, it was, I think, about exactly a year from that time. And I kind of watched Ben do a little bit of a burnout on it. And then I watched him sort of try to hide his identity. Like he came in with like bleach blonde hair one Sunday to church. So I felt like I was kind of watching him out of the corner of my eye, and he was burning out a little bit. But then a year later, I got laid off from my job, and I'd gone through that before, and it was a rough job market. And I didn't want to, beat the streets for another sort of dead-end desk job editing trade publications. So I was on the lookout for something, and this church that we had in common. I was stay-at-home dad because I was out of work. So I was with some young kids and my daughter and my son, and we were going to mom playgroup. It's like this church event that would happen every Wednesday where all the moms, stay-at-home moms, would get their kids together and play and talk about diapers and the Bible and all this stuff. Yeah. And so it was me and all these moms at this playgroup. And this week I went was at Ben's house, and Cammie, his wife, was hosting it. And in the middle of the playgroup, she got a phone call, and it was these guys out on the road who apparently Ben had hired or was in league with in some way, and they were calling with all kinds of questions and concerns, and they were driving through the Arizona desert with like thousands and thousands of dollars, going from one casino to the next.
Okay, I know who that was.
Right. And I thought, what's going on and how can I get involved in this? Because I understood pretty quickly, and Cammie saw the look on my face, when she explained, these are guys that, Ben hired, gave money to, trained them to play the game and sent them out. And so I was, my eyes were big as saucers, and I was wanting to know how this all came together.
So for people listening that don't really know too much of our story, Ben and I started playing together, 2002-ish. And it was kind of a hobby, and pretty quickly we started making money at it and started treating it pretty seriously. But we, like Loudon said, we got a little burned out. But that's when we kind of had the idea of training some of our friends to play that could use employment or were excited about it. We're more excited than we were at the time. And so we started growing a team and sending them around the country or countries to play. So I remember when you started you were one of the quickest from point A to a test out. What was that like for you?
So when I had this I'm going to prove myself thing. Yeah. So I wanted to prove to Ben I could do this thing. And I had sort of this chip on my shoulder, like, I've done this already. Yeah. I know what I'm doing. I've got a head start. Because I remember the first time I met with you, Colin, I showed up with another person who was interested in doing this, which was Jeremy.
Oh, yeah.
And so we showed up, and off the bat, I was like, oh, I know more than this guy. He doesn't even know what the game is. And
yeah.
So I just had this like drive that I'm going to do it. And there were a couple of hurdles along the way, which is the cards came out and I went blank. I didn't really know my deviations because I was doing it on a shoestring idea of how to beat the game before. So I basically needed to relearn everything. But I was so motivated to prove myself that nothing was going to stop me. I was just on fire.
I remember that when you came over with Jeremy and I did our little intro talk, which is like, what is EV? What is blackjack? How does it? Which basically became the first section of our video course. We got tired of doing this talk over and over for everybody that was interested in joining the team, and so we said, well, let's just record it and host it on the internet. Then say, watch this, and if we didn't scare you off, then let us know if you're still interested. But I remember doing that for you and Jeremy. The reason I remember is because Jeremy, I thought he was probably scared off by the time I was done with the talk. And I said, so what do you think? And he said, I'm in.
He did?
Yeah. Nice. He was totally sold on it. But so talk a little bit more about just training, what that looked like for you.
So the first step was memorizing basic strategy. And for somebody who thinks they've done it, until somebody's dealing to you, you don't really know if you've got it, because everything, it's just like, the math test at school that you thought you were going to ace, and once you see the numbers in front of you, you pause and stall, and it always looks worse because someone's standing there waiting for you to make a decision, and you're hesitating and pausing. So I realized that I wasn't fluid with the game. I had to relearn basic strategy, and then from there, get the deviations going. Keep the count and not mess it up, and all those sort of first steps in learning the game, go through those stages where you feel like an idiot and where you feel like you're a total newbie. But there was some weird byproducts during training, which is I was doing so much head energy into focusing on counting and keeping numbers, and that I would my stomach would tighten the whole time I was in a session, and my head would get this loop going of numbers, and I would be 30 minutes down the road after the session had ended, and I would still have a number going in my head, just because my body hadn't learned how to use that information and process it in a comfortable way. So I was just on like manic overload with information.
Well, I think I still do that. I'll be 10 minutes after a session and still have some number running in my head. But I think probably any card carrier can relate to that.
Did it ever become, because for me it became, there were moments of nausea that were like surprise moments, like it wasn't related to a session, but like, in the middle of the day I'd get up and get in my car to go get groceries or whatever, and I would have this weird sort of panic nausea, and I totally mentally attribute it to the time I was in training, as just my head and my body were like not in sync. I was throwing myself off, or I would get on the, after I passed the test and was playing for the team, I would get on a plane headed somewhere, and instantly I would feel like, oh, I'm too sick. I'm going to land and I'm going to throw up and I'm not going to be able to do it.
I do know that I've gotten sick on a few trips. I remember Ben getting, it seemed like food poisoning. But then when we started to see, I just thought it was coincidence. But then once we had the team going, it was not uncommon for someone to have one day of their trip, they're too sick to play. Like they've got, it seems like the flu or food poisoning, but it's just absolute nerves.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because for me it was never fear of playing. Like I know a lot of people on the team had trouble, like they can't even make it to the table because they're so, they're balled up with nerves. And for me, I was anxious to get to the table. So it wasn't that. It may have been nerves, but it was nerves of a different sort. It was just like everything that went into learning the game and practicing it and, putting so much energy into it that it would just do something to me.
Interesting. I know that I tell people this. They say, well, do you ever get nervous anymore? And I say, to be honest, there are, I don't know if I'd say the majority, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is. The majority of sessions for the first 5, 10, 15 minutes, I'm nervous. I just get a little excited and jittery, and then it calms down. But I would have thought that would go away after the first year or two, but I still get that. Yeah,
I do that. And, you have to, or at least I had to be careful going into a session because I could tend to counteract that by playing it really too safe.
Oh, yeah.
Like over betting, my safe zone. Like, oh no, they're watching me, or I'm going to get kicked out right away. And needed to guard against, thinking that way, because usually what happens is, 30 or 45 minutes into the session, I've got, a real comfortable sense of what they can withstand, and I'm pushing the limits, and, doing my big bet when I need to, clockwork without any hesitation.
Yeah. For me, I would get that nervousness, but there's just a sense. There's only one way to beat the game.
Right.
That's to make the right decisions, to put the bets out when I have to. And I drove all the way to this stupid casino. I'm gonna do what I have to do because I gotta get those bets out there and deal with the consequences.
Yeah. So far as training for me, I seriously think I sat down with you for the first lesson, and a month later was pushing to get tested out for the team. It was about 30 days.
Yeah. And then you test it out, and it's been I don't know however many years since then, but I'm sure people would be interested to hear a couple of your favorite stories from the trenches.
Oh my gosh, my favorite stories of all time.
Yeah, something you haven't written a blog post about, or
oh well, that's going to be hard because I feel like everything that's my top 10 favorite moments are all in the blog posts.
Well, what comes to mind when I say some of your favorite stories?
I like some of the small town wacky things that go on. One of my favorite ones is small town casino, and there's a strange lady walking around the room who's wearing like gold spangles.
Yeah,
and she's a middle-aged woman, but it's clear by the way everybody talks about her that she's a known quantity, and that she's sort of the town prostitute.
Yeah,
not a pretty lady. This is the small town, but just kind of a weird character.
Yeah.
And she came and sat at my table, and I remember when she came and sat down because she brought a sandwich with her that she, like a sub sandwich. And the first thing she did was
bringing her Subway sandwich to the blackjack table.
Right. And the first thing she did was she set the sandwich on the chair, and then she sat on it, like sat with her back against the chair, like she was nesting it.
Oh.
It was just such a weird thing to do.
Just warming it up.
Keeping it warm.
Oh.
And so this casino, because it was a small backwoods sort of a casino, the dealers were not very good, and they would make mistakes, and I would be on guard, and try and catch payout errors and things like that. And this dealer, it may have been his second day, was sweating bullets just by virtue he didn't want to get heat from the boss for how he was dealing. Yeah. So he had his own issues, and he was really doing a bad job, and I was getting the benefit of it. He was paying out pushes and things like that.
Yeah.
And there was a specific hand that came up, and I had clearly lost. I think I had a 17 or an 18, and he had a 19, and he started to take my money. And this woman at the table said, "No, no, no, no! He wins! He wins! He wins!" And the dealer was so flustered by that he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah." And he paid me on the hand that he was about to rightly take from me.
So the lady with the sandwich behind her back, clearly for you, she says that you won a hand that you clearly lost.
Yeah. So, which is great. Like, hey, good job.
Yeah.
You helped me in my, and maybe she recognized that he was mispaying, but she had an angle, which is the moment that he paid me out, then her hand shot under the table towards me, like, I want my due now.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't give her anything.
Yeah.
To me, that's a hustle, right?
Yeah.
And she's a lady of questionable character to begin with.
She's no stranger to hustling.
But I told that story to my wife, and I was like, "You should have paid her. You idiot! You jerk! You're such an asshole!" Like,
oh man.
I'm like, what? This is a total hustler.
She worked for it.
Yeah. She worked for it, and she earned it, and I did not pay it.
Yeah.
So that's the moral of that story. But she threatened to tell the pit boss on me.
Tell the pit boss what?
Tell the pit boss that he had made a mistake, and potentially they would roll the tape back and make me. She was
gonna point out that she had
right.
stopped the dealer, and clearly,
yeah. It didn't. I didn't see it going very far, so I didn't buy it. And they sort of wrote her off anyway. Hey, okay, yeah, whatever.
So it sounds like some place out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it's funny to me, a lot of people that start playing, they get really excited about the Bellagio's and the Wynn casinos, and to me, I get excited about some place that isn't on any blackjack website, and I show up, and I don't even know if they're going to have blackjack. I get in there and they do, and it's some place completely off the radar, and then I can play there for hours while they're looking at their vacation plans on the computer, the pit bosses, and I'm just spreading my bet wildly.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that was one of the secret advantages of our team. I feel like the teams that went before us, they were well known and did very well, but it was because they were playing Vegas and Atlantic City, and they did their thing there. And I felt like we capitalized on how to make it profitable to hit those small casinos. And the small casinos are where you find happy surprises, Like they're cutting off 10 cards off the back of a 6-deck shoe, or they're, mispaying you in your benefit, at least one hand per shoe. I mean, that's an amazing advantage you have. Or they let you sit and play 17 straight hours and don't give you any heat. I mean, where are you going to find that in Las Vegas? You're not.
Yeah, you're definitely not. I remember a place that was one of the... It seemed like it was basically a tent that they had. They had some security cameras and two pits. And we would go there, and we'd go there every week. But they had double deck, and they only had one cut card. So once they would have you, so they'd shuffle the cards, and then they'd hand you the cut card. And how they would put the cards in front of you for you to cut, you could see the back card. So if it's a 7, 8, or 9, you don't worry about it. If it's a small card, you cut it super thin, because then they're going to put it, or if it's a small card in the back, you cut it super thin in the front so that small card stays behind the cut card, and you've effectively started with a +1. If there was...
Which is like a true half with a double deck.
Yeah, absolutely. If instead it was, best case scenario, an ace, you do the 2 card from the back cut. So you cut the back 2 cards off, and you'd have to be very careful to get just those 2 cards, because what they do is then they're going to burn the first card, and the next card's the ace, and you've got, your whatever table limit
raise
is.
The bets.
Absolutely. And you don't look, you just look like you're ready to gamble. But we used to, love finding those places, play those places week after week until, someone else that I don't know if he's going to go by his real name or not, but someone else that I'm going to be interviewing from our team, he was the king of that. He'd drive hours out of his way to and he might show up and they wouldn't have blackjack, or he could show up and be there the next 5 days playing, 16 hours a day with some incredible conditions. But yeah, that was definitely one of
my favorite 1-2 punch was a double deck game where they would pretty consistently reveal their burn card, and once the cards were in the shoe, you could pretty consistently see the back card, because a lot of times you could get yourself a true 1 before they dealt a card, and then it just looks like you're a crazy big bettor putting your big bets out.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So before we finish up this podcast, do you have any advice for people that are either still training or have just, they're just starting to put things into practice?
My first piece of advice is don't do this alone. Find somebody, have somebody deal to somebody, because I think the lifeblood of surviving is having somebody to keep you accountable. Totally. You were probably making mistakes that you aren't going to catch. You're probably going to get depressed when you have a losing session.
Absolutely.
And you need somebody to give you motivation, and so that's the first and most important thing, is have somebody that's sort of your partner in crime, so to speak.
Yeah, that's totally why we even decided to have a forum on the site, because Ben and I can remember when we were first. The reason Ben and I teamed up is because I was playing on my own, and I was calling him probably 5 times a day to say, what do I do in this situation? What do I do? And he'd say, I don't know. But, he was playing on his own, and we could both very quickly see that we were just desperate for camaraderie. Yeah. And we would be on, blackjack forums, but, we just wanted to find people that we could talk to about this, because your wife or girlfriend, she can't really relate, and your buddies, they think that you're just a gambler,
Yeah.
So to have people that can relate to both the highs and lows of the game is just so necessary.
I can't tell you how many times that I would be out on the road and having a difficult go of it, and thinking like, oh, this stinks. I'm not going to be able to crawl out of this sort of emotional hole. And then just by calling someone, thinking, oh, whatever, but just talking to someone who understands and it's like, go, you can do it. Well, get it back out there, fight. It's just, it's so good to have someone who knows what you're dealing with to sort of pick you up, because there are lots of moments that you'll get down, you'll drop your head, think you're not doing something right, or just depressed with the loss or whatever it is, or you need travel directions, and Kay, can you look up an address for me on your computer or something? Yeah,
absolutely. We should do a whole podcast on planning a
trip planning.
Yeah,
I love that. I love thinking about that stuff.
We'll have to do that. Cool. Well, thanks, Loudon, for taking the time to tell us a little bit of your story and give some advice to other people out there. And for those of you who stumble across this podcast, it's from Blackjack Apprenticeship. You can check us out, and we're dedicated. We've run teams, we've played on our own, we've taken now I think it's safe to say we've taken millions from casinos.
Yay!
And we are dedicated to training others how to become advantage players, how to think like advantage players, and how to beat the casino at blackjack and beat the world in life. Cool.
All right, thanks.
We'll see you guys next time.
All right.